Okay, I just noticed after my last video that I labeled it wrong at the beginning. I said it was about interactive installs. It was really about automated install using WDS. I'll have to put a note in it. Well, this one's about VHD, VHDX installation source. So what are we talking about? Well, you may remember in the last video about automated installs using WDS, I had an E drive and I put the installation source in the E drive. In other words, I put the install.wim file in its own drive. It wouldn't even let me put it in the C drive of my server. I had to put it in a drive of its own. Well, in order to do that, I had to make a virtual drive in my virtual machine in order to put it into. Well, let's take a look at that. Now, normally we would be doing this in Hyper-V because this is a Windows class, and Hyper-V is the go-to virtualization software in Windows, but we've been using Virtualbox, and we can do it in Virtualbox. So let's take a look at it in Virtualbox. I did this in DC2, so I'll go ahead and continue this in DC2. I'm just in the Virtualbox Manager. I'm going to go to Settings here and down to Storage. Now, I'm in my DC2 right now, and I'm going to go ahead under my SATA controller. I'm going to click Add Hard Disk and Create. Now I have some options. VDI, which is the one that Virtualbox tends to like to use. VHD, which is the one that Microsoft likes to use. And then VMDK, which is the one that VMware likes to use. Now VHD, which is now VHDX, by the way, Microsoft has changed to a VHDX format, but they originally bought the VHD technology back in 2003, I believe it was, is the one that is their go-to. So in this case, I'll go ahead and use VHD just because it is the Microsoft version. And I will add a VHD virtual hard drive to our DC2 machine. I'll click Next. And I have a couple of options, dynamically allocated or fixed size. Fixed size means it will always be whatever size I give it. All this really is it's a file, and that file is seen by my virtual machine as a drive. So if I choose fixed size, let's say I make it 15 gigabytes in size, it will always be 15 gigabytes. Now, it will be more efficient, but it will take longer to set up and will always take up that much space. If I make it dynamic, it will only take up as much space as is needed at the time, but it will lose some efficiency, especially as it grows. Now, in this case, we're only talking about using it, as you saw back here, for an installation source. It doesn't have to be very big. Remember that typically the install files are on a DVD. This is usually a double density DVD, and so it's only at the most 8 gigabytes large, so they don't really have to be all that big. But typically I choose around a 15 gigabyte and then dynamic because we're not losing a lot of efficiency for one that small. If it's going to be, say, 100 gigabytes, I might choose fixed size unless I don't have 100 gigabytes to give up. So in this case, I'll just go ahead and choose dynamic. So I want maybe 15 gigabytes. Looks like my numlock wasn't on there. 15 gigabytes will create that. And I will go ahead and close that out. And now I'm going to start up my machine. Okay, we can log in now. And now that everything's all up and stable, I'm going to go ahead and go to my disk manager. diskmgmt.msc. And as soon as I go there, it wants me to initialize this disk. I'll choose GPT, which all current versions of Windows use, and I'll click OK. And let's see if I can find it here. Ah, there it is, right there. All right, it's currently unallocated, so I'll just go ahead and right-click here and say New Simple Volume. Next, next, and we'll go ahead and assign it an F drive since E is already used on this one. And next, we'll go ahead and let it be an NTFS drive. And there it is. We should now have an F drive under this PC, and there's my new volume called F. I can rename it if I want. We'll rename it, let's see here. How about WDS image? There we go. If I wanted this to be a WDS image drive, I could now call it WDS image. It won't change name right away. It'll take a moment. There we go. Now it changed it to WDS image. And I can now use this as a WDS image drive, and you can see in our objectives here, this is now a VHD installation source.